Does that take care of observation policy?
Yeah, that was all I had. Did you have anything to say? That's fine. Okay.
Okay, the last paragraph, it says.
Focus
the
group?
Staff shall report any of 5 minutes.
Focus group?
And they reference the
Focus
same.
group, okay, we had, we
Well, listen to the
finished-
focus group first.
We finished our focus group on parent participation, we talked about that the last time. Since then, we had our first meeting, our first focus group meeting on co-teaching and inclusion. We had 4 attendees. I sent the minutes to, I think you've got a copy of the minutes, right?
I did.
Yeah, okay, so I have a copy if you want them. Basically, we focused more time on inclusion and maybe some things that we can do to just educate the general public and maybe just make it more obvious that this is a policy that we embrace as a district. So we're gonna look at different ideas for this and come to the next meeting with that. We couldn't do a lot with co-teaching because the players who were not able to attend that meeting. So we're hoping at the next meeting we'll be able to talk more about that. Victor, this is a copy of those if you'd like that. And I'll email it to, I think everybody else actually here has gotten a copy.
Your next meeting is the 15th.
Our next meeting is the 15th at 4:30 here or next door, whichever is available, we're flexible. So I don't know if there's anything else really to talk about with that, the focus group in particular.
Just so we know who's going to be attending this one?
I did speak to Pauline Kamara today. She
Okay.
apparently had
I
the
didn't
wrong
talk to
date
you
and
about
time, yeah, so she'll be at the next one from the middle school, and then the rest of the players were kind of question marks still, so.
Well, if you have Pauline, at least to give some info as it relates to co-teaching at the middle school, you can have basketball, I know it's attended to several of the sessions, at least represent, I'm not saying she represent all of them, but I mean, certainly can talk to her colleagues and try to bring some
Right, and I think
information.
that Beth is gonna try to bring, that Councilman's gonna try to bring someone else with her, one of her teachers.
But you talked to Pauline today?
I did
Okay.
briefly, yeah, we talked real quick.
Okay.
So I think that is set up. I do wanna just let you know that some of the parents have communicated to me, because we've gone to different PTOs and let them know that this is a subject that we're talking about. There's been a couple of parents who have come up to me and expressed an interest in whether or not there will be piloting a co-teaching classroom at any of the elementary schools. So just FYI, that's an interest. I know that this is more something you wanted to focus on the middle school, but just putting it out there. And we will, like I said, we'll have more time to talk about it on the 15th and gather more information and get that back to you.
Okay.
So that's quick and easy, right?
That's great.
We have recreation.
Recreation. Teresa, go.
You want to do those first? So you have a-
What are you doing? I wasn't
skip-
doing
I-
anything,
I will
go ahead,
skip
jump around.
Skip that, we get to the end of stuff.
All right, how about public complaint procedure?
Oh, we're not gonna do recreation?
No, we're skipping
Well,
it.
we skip that and go to the end. We do it.
Okay, public complaints, okay, so public complaint procedure. We, unfortunately, we've asked about what the procedure is to, I would say more complaint resolution. That there's been a lot of parents who have come to us, and even in our own experiences, we're looking for what is the procedure to resolve complaints in the district. And even when I called central office and asked for a copy of the complaint procedure, what they sent me was the civil rights complaint procedure. But we were looking for just a general procedure. So actually, we took a look at the policy book, and there is a procedure, or not a procedure, I'm sorry, there is a public policy for the district about how to manage public complaints through the school committee. So I guess the question about that would just be, why doesn't anybody know about it, and how do we, I think that there's been, yeah, I think that there's definitely been times, I can think of many different situations where, knowing that this exists and knowing how to go about bringing a concern to the school would have maybe avoided a call to Victor and helped to resolve the situations more quickly.
So you don't think people know about it?
I don't think, no.
Isn't it in the handbook?
It is not in the handbook,
No,
no.
it's
Sometimes
No,
I
it's in
remember
your
reading,
policy book.
it's in the policy, all
Right,
right, I
it's in the
remember reading
policy
that,
book,
for some odd reason,
yeah.
I
I mean, a couple of these things, if you want them to be, I mean, we can make links, I'm not gonna create a public complaint link, I hope you understand. Here,
You know,
but
it doesn't
I
have
mean,
to
the policy
necessarily be
book,
called
they need to
that
be
either.
aware.
It could
It's
be
more
a
complaint resolution, like how do you resolve a
A
conflict
result
resolution,
issue
you know?
resolution, not, it doesn't have to be so adverse either, you know, it just could be an issue.
See, at my level, you know, this is, fight my bosses sometimes, I always remind school committee members, because it's typical, I mean, that's pretty common. School committee members in any town get calls, that's
Yeah,
what
that's
people
true.
tend to do, and I'll always say, just refer to the policy. They have a responsibility to get back to their constituents, but just go to the policy, which is what you need to do is start, because I agree, I think if people knew this was the policy, they would follow it. I think the frustrating part, I think, in fairness though, I think the policy works. It's those circumstances where the person is not satisfied with those individuals, whoever they may be. Teacher, I'm using the list that they have
That's
there.
it, yeah, principal.
Principal, and then the superintendent. I mean, then it gets to that
And then
point
school
where I'm calling you because I've already tried that.
That's
So-
true, however, I
Yeah.
think that there's more in this policy, about, you know, it's pretty detailed about, you know, if a complaint comes to the person, then you try to work it out with that person. And then
Yeah.
there was, like, along the way,
There should be
it talks about
documentation.
meetings and written notification and,
Documentation.
you know,
Executive sessions.
executive
You can go
sessions
in,
if it has to
can't
get to that point,
Get.
you know.
anywhere.
So I think, like, if you look at,
You're looking at public complaints about school personnel?
if you look there, it
Yeah.
talks more in depth about, you know, meetings. And Rick, you and I have even talked about, you know, personal situations where a sit-down would have been helpful and maybe avoided
Yeah.
a bigger issue for everybody. So I'm just saying, this is here, I don't know if we're really following it. You know, I guess what I would say is that you know, I know that we gave you notice that this was something we would discuss. I don't know if you've actually taken time to read this in depth.
I did.
Okay.
See if
okay.
it is being.
Because we, honestly, I
Yeah.
think the consensus is it's really not being followed
And
the way
then a
that
parent
it's written.
doesn't, like, there's no follow-up, like
But-
saying this was taken care of, even.
And where is
What-
everything
here's-
kept?
I
Like
guess-
when a complaint comes in for somebody and there's
Yeah.
meetings, where is, all right, so could a teacher or an administrator have, you know, 100 issues with different parents? And where's the compliance with it? And how, you know, we couldn't find anything like that.
Give me an example, Terry. I mean, I don't mean.
Okay,
examples
okay, so there's
specific.
a
I mean, I looked at-
principal,
here's what I-
Mrs. Smith, right?
Yep.
And
There's a complaint.
and we've got 50 parents have had issues with this
Yep.
principal. Different things,
Yep.
maybe a couple of the same. What happens? Where
Right.
is all that in their file?
Well, I would-
When do they finally get disciplined? You know, can there be a bad principal and they stay here?
Well, I mean, if you look at the policy, there are steps in the process to follow the policy. I mean, I'm not trying to skirt your question, but I mean, I think if you're saying the policy's okay, then let's just make sure we adhere the policy. And I'd say that about all the policies, obviously, but we're talking about public complaint. And if you don't feel, or a parent feels that we're not following the policy, then someone needs to call us on it, from my perspective, which is, I mean, I do, I mean, if I get a complaint, I mean,
That's what we're doing.
well, but no, I'm saying from this point on, if you look, I mean, at one point, it says that the complainant has already met with the person criticized and remains unsatisfied, the supervisor should invite him to file his or her complaint in writing. Now, maybe we don't do that enough, maybe we attempt to have a discussion, in an attempt over the phone to address that. You know, and I'm guilty of that, I'll be honest with you. I'll maybe try to have a discussion with a person to address an issue with a principal and or teacher, when the reality is the policy doesn't say that. Policy says if you're not satisfied at that level, then submit your complaint.
Well, you
Communicate
suggest
with me.
it, because the person might not want to submit it in writing.
Well, yes,
They're
yeah.
supposed to suggest it.
Well, but if they want to, my suggestion would be, if they want to deal with it at my level, they must put it in writing. Now, it can result in a
Right.
phone
What
call.
about
agree.
something in writing back from you?
Well, that's not what the policy says.
I know, but
what-
that's the thing, because if we write in writing and then you do something verbal, then then
Don't
things
have it.
get
We
all.
know where it all
I
went.
didn't say
Yeah,
this,
my only,
yeah.
I just
And
have
how do we clarify that the complaint has been resolved?
Right.
Meaning,
Right,
you know,
we don't get anything in
perhaps
writing.
you've provided an answer to,
A satisfied answer.
perhaps you've
Yeah.
provided an answer and you say, okay, well, you know, I gave him the answer to this and everything
So
seems fine. Did
Well, the only
anybody-
time it comes back to you in
Does anyone then say
writing
to a parent,
is,
are you content with this resolution? Do we say to the family, you know,
I'm not actually answering my opinion, I'm gonna tell you what our policy says, which is consistent with a lot of school district policies. I'm in the process of doing the policy book for the region. Dayton, Rehoboth, and Freetown Lakeville have identical language. All of this is MASC, and Victor knows this. The only time you're gonna get that written response, parents, under the current policy regarding your personnel is not under number 7, which says, if there's dissatisfaction, then you put it in place on the school committee agenda, and the decision of the committee will be communicated in writing to all interested parties.
Okay, but
Up until that stage, it doesn't require,
Right.
and again,
I
remember, this is
understand.
your personnel matters.
Well,
I
just
understand.
have-
We know what the policy, right?
Yep.
But,
But I think that a lot of the parents at this table have submitted written complaints in writing to the school committee, and that's not happening. I don't think any of us have ever gotten a written response from a school
I didn't
committee
mean to
member.
slide
Have you?
away.
Has
No,
anyone
like,
here
outright.
gotten a response? I'm just
I don't-
saying.
My question right now,
and if we did get it in writing from a different level, even though it's not the policy, then, so
Then
now
maybe it
if I don't
avoids
get
having
it
to
in,
go to that
right, and
level.
even if I get a verbal answer, I might still feel that I have to write to somebody else so I can get something in writing.
But
That might avoid.
that's also addressed, Teresa, in there. It basically says if there's dissatisfaction after the above steps have been taken, then you have the right to bring this to the school committee, and then, I mean,
Place
we're
it on the
talking, and
agenda.
I mean, keep in mind that the
Or
policy
you
we're
can call
talking
an
about
executive session.
is personnel.
Mhm.
And personnel then requires with it, there are laws as it relates to employees, confidentiality. If you're gonna have a discussion about a person, and we've had, in my opinion, violations of that in relation to staff members, both publicly and privately, being discussed. Anybody who's gonna be discussed has a right to have representation, be notified
So, but
in
the problem.
advance of that discussion.
But no one has told us that we can call an executive session and
Yeah.
have a
Well,
discussion
it
with that
doesn't say you can call an
individual.
executive session
It
there.
absolutely does
It's-
say you
it's-
can call an executive session.
Under
Yeah.
this policy piece right here, under public,
when you just,
under public complaints about school personnel, what policy are you referencing?
Give me a minute, because it's in there.
now, while she's looking for that, let me just ask a question. If
You're
If you're looking for, let's say
It's the one before.
the teacher, you have a complaint against a teacher.
It's
And
right
the
here.
superintendent, and the principal writes a letter saying, I reviewed your request or your concern, I've looked into it and it's being resolved. Now, if, I'm just gonna use this as an example, now let's say the principal's wrong, the teacher is wrong. The teacher can't, a principal cannot turn around and say to you, listen,
We're disciplining this
we're
teacher.
disciplining,
I
you
see
know,
what
you
you're gonna do,
you know, all we can, the
No.
only way you,
No, no, no,
I'm gonna
and
tell you,
of
if you
course,
get that
of
letter
course.
saying, we're looking into it and it will be resolved, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're gonna be the first person to call the superintendent and say, this is the letter I received, a 3-letter sentence.
I don't think
Yes.
that we would be the people that would be calling.
Oh, I'd say you
No, because no, the reason why, because I am, because if I was to get a letter from a principal that's saying, listen, I understand,
Well, that's happened.
I understand your
Yeah.
daughter and the teacher had this issue, I looked into it and I have addressed it. My next response will be, well, how did you? Because this is my daughter.
It's the same complaint
This
we
is
get
my
when a kid
daughter.
is
Okay,
suspended
but
from
what I'm
school
saying-
or there's a
but-
That's not really quite what we're asking for. I mean, if there's a meeting, so the teacher, the principal calls up and says, okay, there's some kind of issue with your daughter and the teacher, let's meet. They all meet, they agree on something, okay, then some type of written thank you for meeting with me. This is what's resolved, this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah, it doesn't
Your
always
daughter-
mean-
Were you
Right.
at the meeting?
Yes, but that's been an issue. One thing is said and then.
Something else is done.
Yeah, we've definitely had to have times where everything's gotta be in writing.
I don't think you're gonna get everything
Oh,
in
yeah.
policy though. I'll be honest with you, I
I'm
think
sorry?
I don't think everything is a policy-driven piece.
No,
I think there are,
no.
and I think most of
But
the.
what is a policy-driven piece, we're not really